Growing outrage after President Obama skipped a unity rally in Paris with over 40 leaders marching in solidarity from across the globe. A poignant scene yesterday. They marched arm in arm with millions of people. Meanwhile, Attorney General Eric Holder was actually in Paris, but he missed the rally, left before it got underway, and two separate Sunday shows he refused to say that the U.S. is at war with radical Islam.
Well, I certainly think that we are at war with those who would commit terrorist attacks and who would corrupt the Islamic faith in the way that they do to try to justify their terrorist actions. So that's who we are at war with. I would say that we are at war with terrorists who commit these heinous acts and who use Islam. They use a corrupted version of Islam to justify their actions.
Waleed Phares is a Fox News Middle East and terror analyst and the author of Future Jihad, Terrorist Strategies Against the West. Waleed, good morning to you. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. What goes through your mind as you listen to Eric Holder try to answer that question?
Well, you know, some are using the term Islamophobia to shut down criticism of the Islamists. Well, I'm listening to the statements by the administration. They have so much phobia, irrational fear of everything and anything that has to do with dealing with the Islamist movement. So I wonder who's the real Islamophobe in this case. I think that they have been very badly advised, and by academic elites and by Islamist lobbies in Washington for years, telling them and arguing that if you talk about these issues, if you use these words, then you're going to create more jihadists. That's what we heard for the last many years. In fact, it's just the opposite. If you don't use this terminology, then this majority in the Muslim world won't know who's the enemy, and therefore you cannot have allies against the extremists. It's just the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that moment that was presented in Paris, and, you know, a lot of people, you can justifiably say, well, what happens now? You know, they all march together, but do they really mean it? Are they going to put their feet to the fire when it comes to fighting back against Islamic extremism? But if the president had been part of that march, or at the very least the vice president, who we understand was quite available, he was at home in Delaware yesterday, according to the reports, you could then turn to those leaders and say, look, remember, we marched together on the streets of Paris, and now we need your military help and we need your conviction. If you don't stand there with them on Sunday, how can you ask them to follow through with you?
Absolutely true. Actually, when you have 1.8 million French people and other international and Europeans in Paris and many other French cities, when you have 40 leaders, 2 or 3 of them members of the Security Council, when you have this moment, this alignment of planets, this is where the U.S. president or vice president should be, to seize the moment and start leading at all levels. We are engaged in a war against ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We need those allies. Actually, let me tell you one thing. Yesterday and today, I have been interviewed by many Arab networks. What was the first question that the anchors asked me? Where was your president? Where was your vice president? I mean, they were very concerned that America is not engaged, though we are bombing in Syria and in Iraq.
And you had al-Sisi, the president in Egypt, speaking out as forcefully as I think anybody has in the Muslim world, saying to the imams, we need to get together and we need to we need to make it very clear that this is not our brand of Islam. You know, this was a unique opportunity that the president had here. And I wonder what the other foreign leaders said to each other about the fact that he wasn't there.
Well, according to the media now and to the blogosphere and to social media, there is a major frustration in Europe, and it's very clear, and in many languages, about the abandonment of the international leadership as it was meeting with the masses of Europeans and French. And also look at the international participation. You had the head of the Palestinian Authority. You had leaders and prime ministers from North Africa and the Arab world. I mean, this is the opportunity, the perfect alignment of planets. We missed it.
Well, what do you make of their reasoning? They said it was a security issue, and that when the president goes someplace, you know, he would have to have such dominant security surrounding him. But I couldn't help thinking about the pictures that we see from G7 or G20 gatherings, where all those leaders are all lined up, and they're all, you know, very well secure in those situations. So why couldn't they do it in Paris?
Well, the president of France, of the country that was attacked, of course, was leading. The prime minister of Great Britain, the prime minister of Israel, the most targeted, probably, leader in that crowd, were there. The Russian officials, everybody. So the security, putting together international security would have solved the problem, of course.
Yeah. Waleed, thank you very much. So much more to talk about, and we'll do that in the coming days. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you.